What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall market. I'm going to break down why the market dumped really hard as SPY did dip all the way down to 652 in the pre-market, only to bounce very, very nicely after what President Trump just said. And then I'm going to break down what I think the market's going to do from here. Just know a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below. Use my QR code right here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 for free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000 or more, you're going to get $50 worth of Nvidia plus a $100 cash reward. Deposits $10,000 or more to get $300 worth of Nvidia plus $100, or deposits $50,000 or more to get $1,000 for free Nvidia stock plus $100. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on invested cash, and the offer ends very soon, so please use my link down below to sign up. Anyways, let's talk about what's happening with the market. So my prediction was correct that the market would dump lower. We did come down to the 200 EMA at 652 on SPY, but then President Trump said something that's helping the market bounce to some extent, and we could try to go a little bit higher. But even if we do go higher, this could just be a temporary move up before potentially getting a rejection again. So listen to me very carefully. I'm not saying we're bouncing the new all-time highs. I'm saying this is a small temporary bounce, and we're going to see if we get another rejection very soon. So what's happening with the markets? We started this sell-off yesterday because of all the prevalence of bad loans from regional banks, leading to lots of fears in this sector. And we saw lots of them dumping very, very hard, right? Not the best of news, at least for the banks. That's part of why the market was dipping alongside the whole tensions between the US and China. However, we did get some more good news that came out today that's helping the market finally bounce. So we dumped and dumped and dumped, and then we got some good news. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is going to be speaking by phone on Friday with Chinese officials to discuss the ongoing trade negotiations between the US and China. That's some good news. And then President Trump said some things that's helping the markets. Basically, President Trump has confirmed that he wants to meet up with Xi Jinping within 2 weeks. That is some good news, so they could discuss trade and such. And then, secondly, President Trump, who announced the 100% tariffs on Chinese exports, he acknowledged them and he said that such a measure would not be sustainable in the long run. So that's what the market liked to hear because, number one, he's going to meet up with the Xi Jinping. Number two, President Trump is now saying that his 100% tariffs on China are not sustainable, meaning that for the long run, he does not think that these tariffs are going to be imposed. It's more like, yes, they could be imposed for the short term for negotiations and such, but he's implied there's going to be some kind of deal coming. They're going to eventually lower the tariffs. It's not going to be a forever thing. So President Trump is being very honest about that, and the market loved to hear that. That's why the market started to bounce a little bit. So that's why we saw this big sell-off. Then we started to bounce. This is also a defensive move off our 200 EMA, which is where SPY likes to bounce off of. So that's some important news. Simultaneously, President Trump also has more tariffs, such as tariffs on large trucks and other ones coming out on November 1st. But once again, not too major. We did see that news come out a while ago, and the market still kind of like priced that in. So today is Friday, October 17th. There's not really much data, just one speaker at noon. And there's just not really a whole lot else coming out, at least for today. Also, we have Ally Bank, which is announcing earnings. They just announced their earnings, and nothing else is too significant for that end. Last but not least, we have over 800,000 plus calls expiring and about 2.8 million puts expiring. 342 or 3.42 is the put to call option ratio, and we have a 658 max pain. We'll see if that shifts or not. So what do I see for the markets? What's my prediction so far? Well, we have a very interesting trend. When SPY touches the red line here, the 200 EMA, we like to bounce. And as we get close to like 665, we like to reject. We like to bounce and then reject, bounce and reject. We might bounce a bit and then reject again. So that's what I think is going to likely happen. If you're a bull, you want to see SPY hold above 665 and then 670, break 670, we're going to all-time highs. If you're a bear, you want to see us just lose 652. If that fails us, I would not rule out the 646 area, then the 630s below that. But I think right now, what's going to likely happen is we go a little bit higher. We might be pushing for like 662, maybe 665. We'll have to see about that for a temporary move up. And then even if we bounce a bit with the news from President Trump, we're not in the clear. We could still turn back down towards our 200 EMA and eventually still lose it because we still have this head and shoulders like pattern. And I just want to say we're not necessarily in the clear quite yet. So could we bounce? Yes, we could bounce a little bit back up towards 662, maybe a little bit higher for 665. It's possible, but even if we go higher, I don't think we're just going to continue to break out to new all-time highs. We still have a risk of rejecting. I think that's the most likely possibility, so we'll see, but watch your levels just to be safe. On the QQQ, we have a very similar setup. As you guys can tell, we have this much larger head and shoulders like pattern that's still prevalent, and that could also be causing even more volatility. um, I think it's very important that we pay attention to what it's doing, and the fact that the rising wedge is still kind of like panning out. Now, what you'll see is that there's a left shoulder, head and right shoulder, but what is good is that we sort of form like a double bottom over here, and that is helping us bounce a little bit. If we could break 600, we're looking for 603. If that breaks, we could be going back up to the high over here. But if we're bearish, we could be tipping back down towards 590. If that fails us, we're looking for 587 or below to start dumping. My prediction, however, is a mix of both. I do think just like SPY, we could go a little higher for the low 600s. It's possible we bounce a little bit, but I would not count on us taking out 607. We might come short, then we could reject again and continue to fall. We could be making a move like that based off this head and shoulders. We could invalidate this if we break past like 607, but I don't really think we go that high. I think we bounce a little bit, then we start to dump again, so be very careful. Also on the IWM, we could bounce a little bit for like 245 to 246. Maybe it goes a little bit higher. We'll have to see about that, but then we could reject. We have a gap to fill down here at 237, and then we'll see if we continue to fall back down towards these levels. So watch that at least very, very closely. On ES, we're basically forming a left shoulder, head and right shoulder. If we end up losing around 65.80, we're looking for a bigger dump. We have this resistance at 66.80. If we break this, we're turning up higher. If not, we could kind of pump and then reject off these EMAs and fall. So break 67.50, we're bullish, but if we hit 6,700 and reject, we're looking for a move back down. I think we could push closer to 6,700, but then we could reject after that, so be careful. The head and shoulders like setup is still prevalent, and that could still affect ES. On NQ, we're looking for 24,834, and we'll see if we get a rejection off that to start tipping. So keep that in mind as time goes on. That's going to be very, very key for how we end up moving. On Bitcoin, we're making lower highs and lower lows. Unless we hold above 106,000, we're going to be favoring 101,000. For Tesla, we're also making lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, and lower highs. Now, if we could hold above 431, we're looking for a bigger bounce to go a lot higher. If we don't hold above this, we could kind of pop here and continue to downtrend. Then we could be looking for essentially 415 or below. So we're going to have to see how it goes. Could we pop a bit? Yes, we could look for, a small push for like 425, maybe even 428. But then there's going to be a risk of Tesla continuing to fall. I don't think we're in the clear yet, and the trend is still bearish technically. So unless we get back above like 440 to be bullish, we're still favoring a downtrend. Could pop a bit, then continue to fall, and there's still downside risk on Tesla. On Nvda, we're making lower highs here. We have support at 178, which is going to likely be retested. If that fails us, we're looking for 175. On Appl, we have resistance at 248 and support down here at 245. I'm looking for 248s to be tested. We'll see if we reject or not. On Palantir, we're making lower highs here. If we break past 180, we're bullish, but if we end up losing 170, we're bearish. We're rejecting, making lower highs, and we could be dipping back down to 175 or below. On AMD, we're making lower highs again. Unless we hold above 236, we're going to be favoring 228 or below. For Coinbase, we're making lower highs here. Unless we hold above 325, we're going to be favoring another downside move for 318. Amazon has resistance at 215. Might slowly push for that. 215, then eventually like 217 could be tested, and we'll see if you reject. Might see a small bounce. Meta may also attempt to bounce a little bit for like the 712s before it turns back down. Google may consolidate right here in the 252 area before it falls for 248. And then Microsoft is trying to go a little higher. If we could break 510, we're looking for an attempt for 512 for a temporary move higher, which could be followed by downside. This implies the VIX could be dipping all the way down towards 22. Then we'll see if we bounce off that or not. But for now, the VIX might be dipping a bit as the market bounces. So there might be a temporary bounce coming. So we're just going to follow the trend in front of us for now. We might go a little bit higher on SPY and the QQQ. Then we'll see if we get a rejection. Keep in mind it's Friday, so Fridays are known for manipulation. And simultaneously, even if we do see a small bounce, don't forget there's still a larger head and shoulders. And if this pans out, we could kind of like pop and then continue to drop. So keep that in mind. The balance that President Trump has caused by talking about China and calling the tariffs of 100% unsustainable, that has helped the market bounce, but it might just be a temporary move. So keep that in mind. I'm just saying it's temporary and to follow the price action for now. Thank you all so much for listening. Watch your levels and peace out.